Hey,
Hi?
what are you wearing?
Is this you, Grandma?
What?
I don't know. How do I respond to that?
Is your grandmother regular? Okay, confession time. Honesty. Does
Sure.
your grandmother regularly phone you up and say, Petey, what are you wearing?
No.
No? Has she ever?
No.
Then I don't understand the path you took to get there.
I panicked. I just wanted I said something that I thought would be awkward and just a mission accomplished, I guess.
I'm feeling satisfied. Not awkward. I feel like you feel awkward, and that typically leaves me satisfied. So
yes.
that's-
It's a yin
that
and
is-
yang. There's a balance to the force.
it's our dynamic. Yeah. Yeah. Hello and welcome.
Welcome to the Movie Men podcast.
Yeah.
I'm Peter, the opposite to Brady, who's over there.
The opposite? Like
Not the opposite, like in opposition, or not even opposition, in collaboration. Sorry. Better.
I'm picturing like a negative, like a film negative.
No.
Like a Dante's Inferno kind of. Or no, what is it? It's not Dante's Inferno. What's the painting where there's like the angels and they've got swords and they're like pointing down at the ground, and then there's like an inverse version and it's like demons and stuff, and they're You don't know this? Okay, I gotta find it.
Not by name, but I don't think that describes us. That's not what I was going for.
It was just in a movie or a TV show.
Huh.
It's in it's in Batman v Superman.
Oh,
Lex Luthor has it hanging on his wall.
Yes, right. Yeah.
Yeah, and he like flips it upside down. He says cuz demons come from above or something. The devil comes from the sky.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, we dabbled in the world of naturist films.
Technically more than once upon a time, but yes, we did.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say once upon a time we dabbled and then kind of never looked back. Like,
Right. Yes.
It took off like a wildfire on the front porch of a farmhouse with a moonshine distillery in the basement.
As it can.
But just let that mental picture fester for a moment. Yeah. Kaboom. We reviewed some naturist films. We had a gentleman on the show. We've had him on the show twice, but only once talking about a naturist film.
Right. Yeah.
The other time we were talking about Love Actually. Which does Love Actually has nudity in it, doesn't it? Is there a naked scene?
But like mainstream
whatever, it counts.
non-naturist nudity.
Yeah. So yeah, he was on the show, and he owns Bear Oaks Family Naturist Park,
Yes.
a adequately named naturist park, and he was like, hey, we reached out and we're like, hey, we want to do a naturist film. What do we do? What naturist film do we do? And he recommended one to us, and we had so much fun with it, and the episode was a beaming success for us. And so then a couple of months later, all of a sudden we had this like naturist community that were following us on Twitter and listening to our show, and we weren't feeding them properly. And so we made a couple more. We've reviewed a few, and it's been too long. It's been too long since we've done something in the naturist genre. And so this is our effort to amend that. I'm yeah. Do you have anything to say? No.
No. It
No?
is time.
Okay. It is time. So listen, this week, I don't think we've ever done an episode this way before.
No, not quite.
It's a pre-recorded interview. This is a conversation that happened in the past.
Yes.
Yeah. We sat down with a gentleman named Mark Storey. He is the author of Cinema au Naturel, which is a written history on a written history of naturist films. He also wrote the book Theater au Naturel, which is a collection of naturist plays and stage production things. And and he's done a whole bunch of stuff. He's very active in the naturist world. And so it was exciting to have him on the show and talk a little bit about just naturist films. We talked about the 3 naturist films that you and I have already watched. And that kind of led to a bunch of other interesting information. And then from there, we asked him a couple of sort of general naturist film questions as well. And yeah, the conversation was really fascinating. So we're excited to share it with you. I wanted to make not a disclaimer. Here's the thing. So when we first started reviewing naturist films, we first started talking about naturist films. I always, like, from the get-go, it was no accident that we started doing this. We didn't bump into Stefan in the street.
Right.
I myself was and am a naturist. And that's not something that I don't think I've ever directly, exclusively said that in this show. I think more recently I've never tried to hide it, but more recently I've like dropped hints at it a little bit. Like I'll say something that's maybe alludes to it. I've been like, there's been Easter eggs there. Anyways, at the time when we were doing these naturist reviews, and talking about these movies or interviewing people, more specifically interviewing people, like when we interviewed Stefan and I would ask questions like, well, what is it like in the naturist world when blah, 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 right? I would ask a question that I already, as a naturist, knew the answer to.
Yep.
And I got a lot of flack for that. Like, people started messaging me, people who knew I was a naturist. And since that time, I have come out fairly publicly on the internet. Like my public image is fairly naturist centric now. And I've had people have commented and people have said like, oh, that was kind of sneaky, wasn't it? and I just want to say no. If you know anything, so I mean, basically what we're doing every time we interview someone is our small basement style backcountry redneck version of journalism. And I mean, we're not proper journalists. Let's get that out of the way. But it's journalism, and good journalism is, just because I know the answer to a question doesn't mean, you. So anyways, my friends.
The best questions are the ones that shed light on both the informed and uninformed. And if you ask every question with the assumption that, everyone has the same base knowledge as I do, you're going to miss out on a lot of information, or a lot of information that's divulged that otherwise wouldn't be. And it's just journalism 101.
Right. Whatever you just said. So I wanted to get that out of the way, because in this interview, I talk very candidly about naturism and my experience and some of my knowledge. And I just didn't want, I was just tired of just don't message me. Don't comment. Don't comment and be like, how long, what's the timeline here, man? Because if I recall correctly, there was a point in time when you were asking questions that made you seem that's kind of, are you ashamed? No, I'm not ashamed. No. I hadn't told my own mom yet. I wasn't going to get on the internet and tell you. Relax.
Steve.
Steven. So without further ado, here's that discussion we had. It's not even an interview. We sat and we had a great conversation.
A conversation. Yep.
Yeah. Well, Mark, thank you so much for joining us. We're excited. We're long overdue for a Naturist episode. We're a movie podcast that have sort of fallen into the subcategory of part-time Naturist movie podcast as well. And it's but it's good. We enjoy it, and we have a following who are Naturist, and so it just works out really well. Could you, before we go any further, we'd just like you to tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe shout off some credentials here so that we it doesn't sound like we just brought in Joe Blow to talk about naked people in movies with us.
Well, you really want Eric Schaefer if you're going to talk about old nudist films with his book, Bold, Daring, Shocking, New. But I think I've done the first book-length thing on nudist films. There's a lot of good books out there on nudity in films. Certainly a lot of stuff on porn, pre-porn, everything centered around that. I haven't really been too interested in that stuff. But it turns out that there's a huge number of nudist films from the 1930s on here in North America. I wrote the book Cinema Naturel. It's now in its second edition that came out of a London press here this year, 2021. That was a blast to put together. I also have edited a book on Naturist plays, Theatre Naturel, a collection of Naturist plays from the 1930s, and primarily some plays that some friends and I produced in the Seattle area a few years back. I also was co-author of The World's Greatest Nude Beaches and Resorts, published by N Editions and Lifestyle Press out of Europe. I was kind of in charge of Western Hemisphere resorts and clubs, as I recall, beaches. Other people covered Europe and the Pacific and whatnot. I've been writing articles for Nude Natural magazine for, close to 20 years. I do a lot of spilling of ink there. There always seems to be some interesting tie into the naturist world. Given lectures, worked with the Naturist Society, was a board member of the Naturist Action Committee, which is kind of a political organization. Was on that board for about 15 years, and the Naturist Education Foundation, nonprofit educational group, just trying to explain to business leaders, politicians, colleges, the public, what naturism might be about. So I've been kind of an ideologue for a while now, since pretty much since I was a teenager, when I was skinny dipping with my dad and brother while fishing. And years later, as a young adult, kind of found some people got themselves cited for skinny dipping at some local beach. And they asked me for some assistance and to talk with some police and legislators. I kind of got into that a little bit, found it was really fun, a great group of people, and have been kind of involved with the stuff ever since.
Yeah, I was so just kind of furthering your involvement in this world. You were fairly instrumental in the shooting down of a bill getting passed, were you not?
Well, you might have got this from Wiki, which I did not write. I suppose, in a sense, some people I was working with, I was kind of the principal lead in that little project. It was a Naturist Action Committee project. There was a bill that we thought was bad. It wasn't against naturists, but it was going to impact just non-sexualized nudity in isolated public lands. People were going to get cited who shouldn't be getting cited. So we worked with some committees in our state capital, Olympia, here in Washington, and the committee chair and the committees agreed with us pretty quickly and had what we thought was a good resolution to a proposed bill. And they just kind of adjusted it, and it safeguarded naturists, and we were happy with that.
So either way,
that was quite a few years ago.
Yeah, either way, you're largely active.
Not as much politically right now. I'm spending most of my time in these COVID years writing. I've got various articles I'm working on. But yeah, I've stayed active with it, and certainly involved pretty heavily with the Naturist Society and certain local groups. There's local and regional groups that oftentimes have some interesting projects off the ground. If I can help, I love to.
So it sounds like we're talking to the right person then. So that's good. That's reassuring.
Well, in terms of nudist film, sure, I would love to talk to you. I probably have more opinions than I really should have.
Oh, that's us too.
Yeah. That's good, yeah.
Okay, so on that topic then, over the last couple of years, Pete and I have, under the advisorship of Stéphane Duchesne, who is a mutual friend of ours, has recommended time and time again a couple of Naturist films to us. And we have embarked on all of them. And we're actually planning on having him on the show again in a couple of months to talk about the history of non-sexual nudity in secular films. So things like, your Titanic drawing scenes and your, just kind of everyday nudity. And so, but yeah, so I think Pete and I, Mark, you said you have a lot of opinions. Pete and I certainly do as well. Pete as a non-naturist, myself as a naturist, and both of us as movie fans, have seen a lot of, we've seen a lot of stuff that makes us laugh and smile. We've seen a lot of things that intrigue us. I think I can speak for both of us, though, when I say we've also seen a lot of crap. We've also seen a lot of just god-awful movie making and confused.
The worst of nudist films are the nadir of film history. This is absolute garbage for the most part. There's some nice gems coming up in the past decades. Yeah, sure, there have been a few really interesting movies, and some of them are socially or legally interesting. But yeah, my God, the nudist exploitation films are like the worst of the exploitation films. All you had to do is throw female flesh on the screen, and you could fill a theater.
Oh, for
I'm
sure.
talking 30s, 40s, into the 50s. Not so much today. It's a whole different world now. But my God, yeah, you're right. Some of these were not so much bad as put you to sleep, mind-numbingly dull. I've seen some of these old films from the 50s and early 60s where it's just nothing but women bored out of their minds sitting around a swimming pool trying to find something to do. And you can almost hear the director yelling in the background, do something, anything, toss a beach ball, jump on jump around on a volleyball court, do anything to move. And these poor women who oftentimes aren't nudists, they're just paid models. You can see it because their breasts are getting sunburned and whatnot. It just makes for in my mind, a mind-numbing but fascinating phenomenon.
Sure. Yeah, they've all got tan lines.
Oh yeah, there's quite a variety. But yeah, you don't watch nudist films for quality. Now there's some interesting things coming out in the last couple decades, and in the 1980s there were some stellar videos that came out. But your classic nudist films from the 30s on to the 60s. It's hysterically bad for the most part.
I think the first naturist film that I ever saw had nothing to do. It was long before I was a naturist, and it had nothing to do with our podcast. It was 50s or 60s, probably 60s. A film called Diary of a Nudist.
1960s. Doris Wishman.
Yeah, and so she's like she works for a paper and she's an editorial, and her boss says, "Hey, we're going to do a piece on this local nude camp. You got to go," and just makes it like it is, and it's an interesting concept because it's so ridiculous. Like, we're going to get into are many of the premises of a lot of these naturist films. But what an example just of like the patriarchy in the 60s, right? That this male boss says to his female employee, you're going to go take all your clothes off and work at this place. And if you don't, you're fired.
Yeah. Although that was welcome to the 60s, I suppose, but that was actually a pretty good example of a mediocre nudist film. It wasn't the worst by any stretch to me. Doris Wishman has a rabid following of fans these days, and she's passed away, of course. But I think Diary of a Nudist is one of, I wouldn't call it good, but it's one of her better ones. It's actually got a storyline. You get to see Zilda Sapli floating around in the film somewhere. She's the owner of the club where they were filming. And Doris Wishman, of course, was no nudist. She would never take her clothes off. Her crew oftentimes enjoyed getting naked, what crew she had during the filming. But yeah, the Diary of a Nudist is a nice example of what Wishman's known for. Yeah, she would write the script after the filming was done. She'd go in and it may be maximum 1 week to save money, get a bunch of film clips going, and then later on she would actually cobble together the details of the story. She would have a basic ideas what the story would be, and that's why you see oftentimes whoever's talking isn't in the screen. And then she pounds back and forth to the various people who are talking, but it's always the person listening, usually the person listening who gets the film time. Or if she is focusing on somebody, maybe she's got a telephone in front of the guy's mouth because she didn't want to have words that she would write later, tie in with the lip movement.
That's a great example really interesting.
Of just really low budget approaches.
I certainly don't mind that one. I think the first time I saw it, I was probably like 13, and it was like 1 a.m. on channel 300, and I was certainly less interested in critiquing the film at the time than I was now after I became a naturist and went back and watched it. But actually, it's definitely not bad. Having said that, though, the first film that we reviewed for our podcast was Garden of Eden. And Garden of Eden is, as far as a production standpoint, it seems pretty on par with a lot of films from the 1950s. Like we didn't watch it and go, oh, the production is just awful. The acting is a little campy at times, but so are a lot of 1950s films. Like it's bad by today's standards. But there's a lot of other 1950s films that have much worse acting in them and are considered excellent films. But there's a couple of interesting things that I think stood out to us when we watched it. One being, and this is going to be a reoccurring theme, but one being the trope of it's and there's always a variation on it, but in this case it's late at night and the car's broken down and we have no choice but to enter this property that a very unassuming property, and then we discover, oh no, this is a nudist place, and now we're forced to deal with that. It seems like in these films, this is the introduction of nobody ever enters a nudist resort willingly. It's always by accident.
It is a common thing. My Fair Lady out of England does roughly the same thing. Some woman falls into a pond with her bicycle and some guy drives by and helps her to the nudist club. I can think of like half a dozen films right now that have basically that little trope, as you call it. It's not the most creative way of doing it, and it doesn't happen in real life that often I'm aware of. But but it's a super important film. Of all the nudist films, that probably historically is the most important. And you talk about production quality. We got a director, was it Max Nosek, as I recall. He'd already done Dillinger, Black Beauty, so he's got pretty good Hollywood cred. Boris Kaufman is the the cameraman. This year before, he got an Academy Award for his camera work on the waterfront. Most of these exploitation films are working outside of Hollywood. This one pretty much is squarely inside the low levels of Hollywood. They spend an entire night filming a 1-minute scene, and no exploitation film is going to waste that much time. He spent over $80,000 flying. I don't know how much he spent, but he spent enough money to put 85 tons of gear onto a plane, a chartered plane, to get it flown to Florida. They painted the lawn. They added palm trees. They did all kinds of stuff that is well beyond a standard nudist film of this time period. And it's really it's sitting by itself in the 50s. It's, we have films going on in the 30s, in the 40s during World War II. Filmmakers basically cut these things up and make these compilation screwball things that people will continue to watch under different titles. 1950s, you really don't have much of anything. It's really into the late 50s, early 60s, you get this new wave of colorized nudist films. The Doris Wishmans, Herschel Gordon Lewis's, David Friedman's, these kind of people. But the nudists themselves thought highly of Garden of Eden. Norval Packwood, the president of the American Sunbathing Association at the time, was well behind it. He actually played the camp owner for the film. There was a lot of time, energy, and money put into this film. The guy who plays the disgruntled old grandfather, I forget his name, but he's a stock actor in a ton of B-Hollywood films, a lot of Westerns. And people would have recognized him. I don't think, it was Marie O'Hare, I forget who the actress, the main actress was. I don't know that she went on to do much after that. But there was a lot of fairly good names associated with that film, and you don't hear that anywhere in these other exploitation films. So I have a hard time even thinking of it as an exploitation film because of the cost involved and the attempt at quality. But yeah, there's some hackneyed cliches going on, and there's no way of getting around that.
So why do you think that is a cliche? Like, why do you think in these films, and I have my own theory, and maybe you do too as well, Pete, but why do you think it's so common in these films for people to for the conflict in the film? Because all good stories have conflict. Why is the conflict typically we've wound up here by mistake?
Well, I don't know if I'd say it's typical. It's common, but we're talking dozens and dozens of nudist films from the 30s through now. And you're certainly not going to find it too often now. You find a little bit of it in Act Naturally. Those two girls don't really expect, they don't know where they're going.
Right.
And Latex deals, they are not sure what kind of property they bought. So it does show up. But you pick three films that have a similar theme, but there's still a lot of other themes going on where this just doesn't show up at all. It does show up a lot, though. Keep in mind that these films are not made by nudists. The recent ones are. The older ones from the 30s, 40s, 50s, into the 60s. No, these are all non-nudists. They're just trying to make some money, and they just know female flesh will sell. And then they stop doing it as soon as porn becomes readily available on the screen, and nudist films just disappear for a decade. So everybody knows kind of what they're up to, and they don't need to develop a good story. I mean, very few people are going to pay to go see a nudist film during these decades. All they want to see is naked women, or in our case, Garden of Eden, top-free, butt-free women. You're not going to see the naughty bits. But it's just, they're just coming up with an excuse to get women on the screen. You're not going to find too many nudists, I would think, coming up with that as a ploy, as a device, if you will, because they just understand there's other ways of doing it. But if you're not a nudist and you really don't understand, you're probably thinking, how can I get the main character into this nudist camp? No one's going to go there in his right mind. Who would do that, such a thing? It's got to be by mistake. So I don't know. That may be why. You guys might have another idea, though.
Yeah, what are your thoughts, Pete?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say, yeah, I definitely can notice a difference that Mark points out as far as like a film, and I've only seen 3 films, full disclosure, the 3 that we're going to mention today. The Garden of Eden, it definitely has a different vibe because, as Mark kind of pointed out, it's not made by naturists. And when we watched Act Naturally, it definitely has a different vibe because you can kind of tell the creative team, has different motives, and they're, just not wanting to exploit or sell things. But I do like, I guess maybe I'm a little naive on what all is covered in different naturist films, but I guess I'm just wondering, because when I look at those 2 films, they both still have kind of like people being forced into something that they don't understand. Like, why don't we have like a Seinfeld equivalent a naturist, like people just working at a naturist camp, and the conflict is something outside of people being not forced into, but kind of pressured into naturism due to lack of understanding. And maybe that goes into the point of the message of enlightening some of the characters and then therefore enlightening some of the audience. But I guess I'm just wondering, like, the conflict seems to have changed in the two different films I've seen, but in some ways it's still kind of similar, like, the change the method, but it's, something's being forced upon the main character.
Yeah, I wonder, like I said, every story needs conflict. And I think the great stories are conflict that you can relate to. And so I think in a lot of ways it kind of depends on what your intention is with this film. Who is it that you're trying to reach? As you sort of foreshadowed to, Act Naturally is made by people in the lifestyle, or at least the director is, and some of the writers. And the Act Naturally feels much more like a film made for naturists in mind, with enough kind of appeal to a more general audience as well. Whereas and Latex Steel, I feel like, has an entirely like a third demographic altogether, or a third psychographic. But I think Garden of Eden, as we've sort of established, is very, very much targeted to the everyday man. That naturists or nudists will enjoy the film. Maybe they'll look at it and go, "Oh yeah, you know what? This is fairly spot on." It's a little weird that when we cut back and forth from either side of the volleyball game, now all of a sudden the team facing us is wearing shorts and the team looking away from us is not wearing shorts. And then we cut to the other side and both teams have, like, now this team's completely nude and that team's wearing shorts. 'Cause God forbid the pubic region. But I wonder if that's what it is. I wonder if it's like, what is something that someone who is not a nudist or not a naturist, what is something that they're going to be able to resonate with? And that's maybe it.
Well, there certainly has got to be more than one answer to it, certainly, because the guys who were producing the film, they're seeped in Hollywood. They would like to make some money. They've got enough bankroll behind them to experiment with something that's pretty iffy. They're dealing with some legal issues, or at this point it's still legally obscene to show the naughty bits. And it's actually legal, in some states it's going to be legally obscene to show breasts and butts and even talk about nudism. So they're playing with dynamite, and they got to know that. They're not going to go to this much effort not. So from the filmmaker standpoint, there's got to be an interest in seeing what they can do. It's got to almost be some kind of experiment they can play with, almost a pet project of sorts, because they can go do another Dillinger, another Black Beauty, another On the Waterfront. These guys have work. They're not dying for work. So they're wanting to see what they can do. There hasn't been a major nudist film yet. This is like the first one that's actually attempting to get out into major theaters. All the others were shown in little roadhouses and Elks clubs and whatnot. I'm thinking of This Nude World, Elysia Valley of the Nude, The Unashamed, the big ones from the 1930s. And all the myriad of little compilation documentaries have chopped up, pieces of nudity on film that would show up in these private showings also. These guys are actually trying to do something. Now, the ASA, the American Sunbathing Association, they are abundantly clear what they wanted out of it. They wanted to have a quality product that would show nudists for what they were. It would be nudism's a fun, glorious thing. You can not like it at first, but you can learn to love it. Come to Lake Como, and your life will be changed. And they were really quite excited and thought this movie was going to really bring in a lot of new converts to nudism, and it actually did. It was very successful as far as that goes. So there's got to be, there's clearly more than one reason for it. The nudists were wanting to kind of let the world know who they are, and the filmmakers are trying to make a buck. And I don't know, maybe they're laughing all the way at the time, but they're throwing some effort into it. unlike the exploitation filmmakers who just clearly were in it for a buck and would skimp every time they could to get just nonsense on the screen. You guys actually picked a pretty good movie to watch. I'm afraid if you watch other nudist exploitation films, you would see how good Garden of Eden is in comparison.
Oh, no. So I'm wondering, like we talk about at the time, it's kind of faux pas to be showing certain body parts still, and certainly the way the film is framed at times, or like I said, the sudden appearing and reappearing of clothing depending on the angle, is evident of that. But something I'm curious about is Karen Sue Trent, who plays little 8-year-old Joan in this movie. When I first watched this film, it was I had certainly never seen a Naturist film this old, and it was a little striking to me at first to see the depiction of a nude child in film, just because we live in a society now where that would be almost instantly deemed as child pornography, and you just wouldn't see it in a modern movie because there's too much connotation around it. There's too much of a stigma there. Was that something that was sort of envelope pushing at the time, or
No,
was that not a big deal?
Not a big deal at all. Back in the 30s, 40s, into the 50s, and the courts were, again, incredibly clear on this. They are very explicit. You can have childhood nudity that is innocent, that is wonderful, that's American pie. What you don't want are adult nudes, and God forbid they be male and female on the same screen. There's all kinds of court cases from this time period actually lauding and applauding childhood nudity. We hadn't had the pedophilia freak out that we're having now. Really, terribly worried about it. It's a horrible concern, yes, but in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, the courts were saying that isn't the problem. It's adult nudity. Now it's flipped around. If you try to buy nudist films now, some of this garbage that you guys were joking about, and you go to places like Something Weird Video, which will sell, let's just stream these online, buy a few copies. You'll even find they are very concerned about the childhood nudity from these films of the 30s, 40s, 50s, into the 60s. They'll actually delete scenes with the kids in them. And if you buy the videos, you're not going to see the kids. And that was just flat out legal and perfectly okay up through the 60s. It's only Reagan years since then that we really have a real huge concern over childhood nudity, and we don't have nearly the concern over adult nudity. Like, act naturally, virtually everything's there. I guess they wanted to avoid I don't even know if they had the thing rated, but they kept most of the naughty bits out for the most part, just because that's how our rating system likes to work. But no, childhood nudity was not an issue back then. It is now, and things have just flipped. Now it's okay to be adult naked, but we don't want to see a kid.
Sure. Yeah. Which is interesting because, like, and again, it's like pictures and film. Because I think now, or I think back to like before I was a naturist, even as an everyday Joe Blow, like in the summer, you would go to the beach and you would see, like a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old getting changed out of their bathing suit on the beach and putting a pull up or their underwear on or whatever. And it wasn't like, you didn't think anything of it. It was just kind of like, oh, well, they're a little kid, so it doesn't matter. But it's yeah. So it was just interesting to me because I didn't know. I knew that it was certainly a no-no nowadays, and I just didn't know sort of the history behind that. So
it's cultural. You go to China or say Mexico, spent a fair amount of time on those beaches, and just kind of studying how people handle beaches, and you'll have little kids like that running around naked. No one really seems to care. But it's getting less and less that way in the United States. When I was a kid, little kids could be running around without a bathing suit on. Now, people were concerned about that. So it's definitely a shift, but it wasn't an issue. That wouldn't have, the kid in the movie, The Garden of Eden, would not have struck anybody as odd. In fact, one of the minors who was in that film when she turned 20, she was, I think she was pregnant and married with her husband. She tried to go see the film so she could see herself in the film, but she wasn't let in because she was under 21, even though it was okay for her to be in the film naked, but she couldn't actually see it as an adult.
Oh, isn't that something?
Yeah.
That's so weird. Pete, do you have any other thoughts on Garden of Eden before we truck on here? Or questions, rather? Pete? Oh, it looks like we lost Pete at one point. Hang on, I'm going to let him back in here.
Yep, there he is.
Hello, Pete. Pete, talk to us, Pete. Pete, you have your mic muted there, sir. Okay, well, we're going to... there he goes. We're going to truck along without Pete. And yeah, hopefully he rejoins us at some point here. He's trying again. Hello, Pete.
Hello, I have joined, so now I can unmute it.
Where'd you go?
I have no idea. All my devices simultaneously cut out. I texted my wife and I said, "What's going on?" And she said she didn't know.
Yeah, no worries. We had a great conversation. We're just wrapping up. No, I'm just yeah. Okay, so
sorry, boys.
You're gonna love listening back to it, though. You'll be like, "Oh, wow, this is what a great podcast."
I have a follow-up question for something Mark was talking about, but I don't know if he's moved like 10 steps past that point. So
okay, hit us with it.
Okay. Well, I am just curious what's led to this change, and there might be a few different answers, and there's no way to definitively pinpoint it. But I'm curious what's led to this change in, if we look at the past where we've got films that were made with different intents, then there was a different industry for nature or naked film. And then we look at modern day and we see Act Naturally in different films with different creative kind of agendas. And I'm just curious what led to this change. Like, is it just a generational thing where we have filmmakers now who've grown up in the naturist lifestyle saying, "Hey, I like film, I like this, I like both, so let's do this"? Or is it just that there's a greater appetite or a greater market for people who want to watch like a little bit more accurate naturist representation of film? Like, what's kind of led to this eventual shift where we go nowadays? We see films like we kind of do compared to the past.
This is fascinating stuff, and you guys just got to say, "Mark, that's enough. Shut up. You can't do this all night." But there's answers to your questions.
It's a shit question, Pete. Just a shit question.
Oh God, you can spend a good hour on this. This is fascinating stuff. I'll respond if that's okay. You guys just got to tell me, "Mark, that's too much." But okay, in the 30s, we got Hollywood being self-censoring and saying we're not going to do the stuff that's going to cause national censorship laws or state level censorship laws. So we're going to get better. We're going to shut up Mae West and all these little people who are doing naughty things. Outside of Hollywood comes these exploitation films. These are people who are able to handle some nudity, particularly nudist films, and get away with it because the rest of the country isn't hammering Hollywood itself. Now, Hollywood's trying to be a good boy, good kid, but these exploitation filmmakers in the 30s, 40s, into the 60s are getting away with all the stuff Hollywood no longer wishes to do. By the mid and late 60s, though, Supreme Court's ruling nudity is perfectly okay. You can show it on film. So there's absolutely no reason to show nudist films anymore because the people who want to see the nudist films just want to see naked women. They could care less about the nudist stuff. And the filmmakers could care less about nudism. They just want to show naked women so they can make some money. Now they can give people what they wanted all along, porn. And when you have 1970s, we have like the heyday of porn where you get a ton of this porn coming out. It's just straightforward, everything from soft to hard stuff. Nudist films are pretty much almost invisible in the 1970s. The nudists are so tired of people associating sexual stuff with nudism that they're saying, we don't want to have anything to do with these films anymore. But in the 1980s, we have some camera gear that's freed up from the Vietnam War, so it's cheap, and we got some people who buy that stuff, and they're pretty good filmmakers, and they're starting to make videos, not films, but videos. Edine Velez is the first major player here in the United States, followed by people like David Ball, Charles McFarlane, Charlie Simmons. There's a string of really good videographers who produce some really good fictional accounts, but for the most part, documentaries of actual honest-to-God naturism, whether it's beach naturism or club nudism. They're putting out a bunch of videos, and they're making a ton of money for the most part because the stuff's not around. The naturists wanting to travel are picking up these videos and watching them on their little cassette players at home. And through the 80s into the 90s, it's doing pretty well. Hollywood is not touching nudism to speak of. There's little jokes here and there, but they're really not touching much of it at all. But this stuff is now clearly different from the exploitation films of decades past. This is now done by nudists and naturists, oftentimes for nudists and naturists. You'll have a few people who will produce videos to show to legislators or business leaders, but for the most part, it's the main audience and market is naturists themselves. You know, people like Bern Loibel starting Internaturally company, selling tons of videos and doing pretty well at it. This is happening in Europe. It's happening throughout North America, Canada, United States anyway. If you start talking to these videographers, and I got to talk to most of them in the process of writing this book, they all had one dream, and that is to actually have the budget to make an honest-to-God fictional movie, a feature film that's not promoting nudism, but is somehow about it and somehow injects ordinary nudists into an ordinary storyline. And none of them thought they really could do a good job with the kind of budget they were working with. We're now seeing with video gear getting even less expensive in the 21st century, and with now posting online, we're seeing a huge number of people who have an interest in naturism. They can now afford to do it. All you need is a good home computer and a pretty decent camera. Gives you far better opportunities than people had 20, 30 years ago. So we have now a large number of people who may not be professional videographers or filmmakers, but producing things like Act Naturally, and some other pretty good videos. And they may not quite be the quality that's going to make hit the feature film circuit, but now they have opportunities to stream them. They were selling them as DVDs or DVD-Rs for a while, but now, heck, I could make a movie and I can probably get it streamed on Amazon. And if I keep the price low enough, there'll be somebody out there who will watch it. And if it's any good at all, maybe a buzz will occur. So the world has completely changed regarding naturist video with streaming. I'm working backwards now. Streaming now, DVDs, VHS, all that stuff just opened the doors to a lot of different people, and the market's just shifted. Some people are producing videos and posting and streaming stuff just for naturists, and it tends to be documentary style. Here's where you go. Here's what you'll expect to see at this beach or this club. But other people are thinking, hey, I think I can make a good movie. And I want to do it with some naturists and have a naturist theme to it. And I think that's what we're seeing with at least with Act Naturally. Latex Steel, I think that's from France. They're just more used to having naturists around, so that isn't a big deal. There's a lot of movies out of France that have naturist themes and naturist characters. I think they can actually play in that movie with the kind of the underbelly of naturism, or at least what's perceived as an underbelly of naturism. In Latex Steel, you kind of see what that filmmaker perceives to be kind of a bad experience among naturists. But the audience has just shifted like crazy over the last couple of decades.
There's a couple of things you said there I want to hit on. One for sure. So it's interesting because I know, as far as skin flicks goes, the 70s and particularly 1972 with the movie Deep Throat is infamous. That kicked off and completely revolutionized the type of video content that was being made. And so it's interesting that the booming porn industry sort of coincided with a decline in interest in these exploitation films, because there was no longer there was no longer a need for it. Why, why buy why go out and buy the mundane and easy approach to things when there's this much more, when the good stuff, the real stuff where they're showing you stuff that they wouldn't otherwise, you can go get your thrills from that instead. So that's really interesting. And then, I think I'm excited to see because like you said, now, if you've got a decent laptop, some editing software, and honestly, a modern cell phone, you can, our cell phones shoot incredible footage. The fact that we have cell phones that shoot 4K, 5K, 8K is nuts. And then, a little bit of color grading, and you've got something that looks like a film. This past summer, and Pete, this past summer, I was the cinematographer and editor for a video called The First Time Experience that we shot for Bare Oaks. And we shot it with a couple of GoPros and a little bit of color grading, a little bit of, whatever else. And we threw that up online like 6 or 7 months ago, and it's done over 3 million views. So the ability to create and distribute is it's way easier than it's ever been before. The film industry, anyone can be a filmmaker now. Really, anyone can be a filmmaker. Filmmaking used to be the most expensive, difficult, because, even once you made it, you had to get this thing distributed somehow. And that was a really expensive, difficult thing to do. But yeah, so it's fascinating to me to see where this is going to go, and what kind of advancements in naturist film we might see in the next little while.
Yeah, right now I'm talking about, wow, it's crazy. How did we get here? And in 20 years, the next Brady and Pete will go, wow, how did we go from 2022 to the future? Yeah.
Are you kidding me? We're going to be the reasons why podcasts get outlawed. There's not going to be another. This will be, yeah. No, it's one and done here. One and done. So let's move on to Latex Steel. Man, so when this film, when Pete and I sat down to watch Latex Steel, and it starts out and you're like, oh, this is pretty interesting. It's definitely got lower, it's got lower production value, but it feels artistic. Like it's not just like, it feels like when they made it, they were well aware of what their budget was. They were well aware of the type of film quality that they were shooting for, and they utilized that properly. It doesn't come across as, oh, this is just low budget. It comes across as, this is indie and artistic. And so I think that's something, that's a win for it. Again, the acting in it isn't horrible. The ever-present, at least for us, trope of man, like, why are all these people taking their clothes off? How could I have possibly ended up on this island without knowing that it was, that's there. I think what was so interesting for us watching this one is Latex Steel has a very interesting twist in that you're watching it and you go, okay, yep, it's your garden variety naturist film. And what's going to happen is they have all these preconceived notions that it's all about sex and that everyone here is having these orgies. And by the end of the film, they're going to realize, hey, that's not true. And naturism is really beautiful and wonderful. And they're going to become naturists themselves. And you're kind of like, you get a little bit of an eye roll because you're like, oh, okay, here we go. The same old plot. And then about halfway through the film, one night our protagonist is taking out the trash, and she peers through the bushes, and she happens to glance in on a party where they all are doing each other. And and it is a big orgy. And it turns out that at nighttime, this island, this community, this little town is like it's just one big sex fest. And now that I'm saying it out loud, I still find it so shocking and jarring, and like I literally had a moment where I was like, what is happening? Am I actually seeing this? Is this actually what they're... And to this day, I haven't gotten a solid answer about why. Why the hell would they... What is that? Is that Hollywood or whoever made this film not getting it? Is it them thinking that the true Naturist story is too mundane? Why take a film about swingers who are also nudists and market that as the typical Naturist experience?
That's not a rhetorical question, right? We
No,
get to talk about
that's a legitimate question. I want to
Right.
have at her.
Shall I go, or Pete? You want to chime in?
Oh, I would mirror much of what Brady said. You know, first half impressions were, okay, I think I see where this is going, and then second half impressions were, whoa,
Okay.
no, not so much.
Okay. How about this? Okay, again, it's French. The most commonly known clothing optional site in France is Cap Dog.
Yep.
And as I recall the movie, this movie is really portraying something very much akin to Cap Dog. Now, I haven't been there, but I've got a billion friends who have, and some people love it, some people hate it and will never go back. But it is a major metropolis of sorts. It's a big city. Yes, you can go shopping nude. You can get your hair done nude. They got multiple beaches, and some of it's incredibly family friendly. You can take your kid and your grandmother, I am told, to Cap Dog and have a wonderful time. If you go to certain beaches and you go to bed fairly early at night. But you wander around the campus, if you will, in the evening, and people are wearing fetish wear. They're going to the varieties of various sex clubs is what they amount to. And there's going to be certain beaches where basically it's an army of guys hoping to see a couple have sex on the beach or a woman do herself on the beach. So when I saw the thing, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, this is an accurate slice of life. And it's most naturists around the world who know about Cap Dog are a little bit embarrassed by the thing. They keep hoping it'll pull itself together.
Because it started out. It started out with like it didn't start out this way, right? Like it started out and it was very idealistic, and it was exactly what naturists would have wanted it to be. And then at some point down the line, someone realized, hey, sex makes a lot more money than
yes.
ethics and morals do.
And sex makes a lot more money than naturism does, apparently. There are a number of nudist clubs in North America, Europe, that the owners are going, I'm struggling financially with county tax codes, environmental impact studies. People aren't showing up. All I got to do is turn into a swinger club, and I can triple my income every single month. And they're just changing from nudist clubs to swinger clubs. I know one in Southern California did it recently, and Texas did it recently. I think it's a shame because my tribe, the Naturists, would rather have the place be family friendly and something we'd be comfortable going to. Cap Dog seems to have two sides to it, depending on what you're looking for. And people in France understand this. It's not that big of a country. You can drive across the thing in a day or so. So they're going to know about Cap Dog. They're going to know about the many other naturist beaches and very much family-friendly nudist resorts and clubs that they've got. But they do know about Cap Dog, and pretty much anybody in the naturist world who travels at all has heard of it. So I suspect this movie is, again, by non-naturists, just coming up with a storyline that they think will play well in France and maybe internationally. But it's not that you can't say it's false. That kind of stuff can't happen. What I recall about the movie, and I haven't seen this one recently, I recall about the movie though, the people in it, the naked people, were fairly normal looking. And by that I mean they weren't pretty. A lot of them were fairly just kind of normal looking people with body hair and kind of gritty, unlike Act Naturally or Garden of Eden, pretty much everybody was kind of happy in Garden of Eden and very young and vivacious and act naturally. As I recall, you guys can tell me if I'm wrong, one of the reasons this family wasn't that thrilled being around naked people is they weren't pretty naked people. They weren't aesthetically pleasing. They just kind of just looked like grimy people that you would see out on the streets, except they wouldn't have clothes on, with fat and wrinkles and hair and whatnot that a lot of people don't want to look at. I liked that in the movie. It's more of an accurate portrayal of humanity, for better or for worse. That is a lot of times how we look. And they, as I recall, they didn't try to make Naturist look too overly young or too overly fit. They just made him look somewhat like you'd see on the street. Am I remembering this correctly, you guys?
Yeah, I think so.
That does ring a bell.
Yeah, there's a good mix.
Yeah, and I do remember the specific like calling out of the mother, like over the phone, saying, "Yeah, these people aren't very pretty," or some such, like commenting on their physical nature, and that was where one of the red flags went off before we were kind of cluing in where this movie was going. We were going, "Oh, but that's missing the point, is it not?" So.
But the movie is not trying to promote naturism, as I recall, in any way. It's, if anything, it's an attack on naturism, saying that naturism has this underbelly. Well, I'm the biggest naturist ideologue you're going to have on this show, and I'll admit there are good naturists, there are bad naturists, there are naturists who don't like sex, and there are naturists who do like sex. Most do. So it doesn't surprise me that someone wants to show a cop dog style of slice of naturism. Garden of Eden showed a completely opposite slice of naturism. Most of it's somewhere in between, where you just have fairly normal people, except they don't have their clothes on, enjoying themselves at a campground or a little bit of a resort. I felt kind of sorry that the family couldn't figure out that there was some good to be found in the naked culture. But frankly, they were seeing a lot of the unsavory part, and they probably just kind of got tired of it. And this film production team was working on that premise, that you can kind of be dismayed by what you see in that aspect of naturism.
Sure.
My slant.
So moving on then, I guess, to Act Naturally. We actually, we were fortunate enough a little while back, year and a half, something like that ago, we interviewed the director, on the show. And so that was kind of fun. At which point he teased about, there's supposedly a sequel coming. There's a sequel that's been shot and is sitting somewhere half edited, or is sitting somewhere edited, but there's no funds to distribute it or something. Cause it was supposed to come out like a year ago, or longer, 2019 or 2020 or something. The movie was supposed to come out. So I don't know. I don't know what's happening with that. Apparently he has that shot, and while they were shooting that one, they were also shooting a couple of scenes for the third one. And it was like a three story arc. I didn't mind Act Naturally. I think it's, of the three films, it certainly, it suffers the most from a production value standpoint because it has a low budget, but unlike Latex Steel that knew it had a low budget, Act Naturally feels like it's trying to be something bigger than what it is. And that maybe hurts it a little bit. Like sometimes, although it's shot like it's supposed to be a movie, sometimes it has, just because of the lenses they're using and stuff, sometimes it just has like a TV or like a Hallmark movie kind of feel to it. And ultimately the story is, the premise is interesting. The father dies, and they're kind of, they're a little bit estranged, and the two sisters have never met each other, and they decide in the end ultimately to keep the park and become nudists, and everyone's happy. It's just kind of like 90 minutes of not a lot happening though. Like it's 90 minutes and I've kind of just told you everything that happens. So it's not a horrible film by any means. And it's if you haven't seen it, it's worth the watch. But the acting isn't incredible, except for the two leads. Like, the two leads are legitimate actresses, and they're quite good. But aside from that, none of the acting blows you away. The production value suffers a little bit, and the plot is pretty bare bones. Mark, obviously you've seen Act Naturally. What is your experience with it?
Well, it is a repeat of the Nudist Story back in 1960. This is a British film that does exactly the same story. One woman whose father, grandfather, or some uncle dies, leaves her a nudist camp. She doesn't know it's a nudist camp till she shows up. She just wants to sell it, and everybody's trying to show her the glories of nudism. Of course, she falls in love with somebody there, and does realize there's just glories and epiphany and eudaimonia wrapped up in a little package with nudism, and decides not to sell the club, and everybody's happy. I think they all wave at her, just like at the end here. But that's okay. That part didn't bother me, that it was a repeat. It's a story worth retelling again. I'm 63 years old at this point. When I first saw it, I was a good 20 years ago, I suppose. But I wouldn't have seen it 20 years ago. Nudist Story I saw 20 years ago. When I first saw Act Naturally, it did strike me, because since I have been to Olive Dale Ranch, I actually probably slept in that very cabin they had where that guy had his little office, and they're called little birdhouses.
They're cute little cabins.
Lovely place. Place. Great place for hiking around, walking. So I recall nice people, nice swimming pool and all. Cold water. But I can't help it. The film just does not present nudists as you'd find them at nudist clubs. Everybody's young and good looking. And shaved. And then nothing. I'm not commenting on that. It just looks so antiseptically young. And maybe if I was that age, I wouldn't notice it. But at this point, I'm definitely noticing it. They're in one of the managers seems to be somewhat middle-aged, and that's fine. That kind of amps it up a little bit. But you're just not going to have that many people of that age there. You're going to find far more old people. You probably, if you're lucky, you'll find some young families with some kids floating around. Obviously, this stage of the game, they're not going to have naked kids in their movie. That just isn't something they're going to want to deal with. So it struck me as odd. What I did like about it, though, is here we have a director, a producer, whoever's doing this, trying to come up with a story that has a fairly accurate portrayal of what naturism might be kind of about and what naturists might be concerned with. And you've got a couple characters you don't normally see in nudist films. You got that gay guy. He's kind of squishy. I don't think he needed to be swishy, but he was actually an interesting character. It was kind of sexed up a bit. You start looking at the outtakes at the end of the film, and everybody's just joking about sex like crazy. So maybe that's fine. Maybe that's what the actual people in real life are into. And certainly you can have sex in a nudist club, and people like sex, and that's fine. But I haven't experienced in my decades of naturism that much sexual tension. Maybe that's me, and I just miss out on it. But I just kind of have floated through my nudist life without really having that much sexual far-for-all going around. It's a youngish film, and maybe that's what the director wants to have in there. He's got some good-looking actresses and actors in there. But it did kind of come across to me as, and I don't mean this in a bad way, younger than nudism would actually be, or younger than most Safeways and baseball stadiums would be. It just simply was homogenous in terms of age, anyway.
Yeah, I think I think I agree. I think the representation is really off. I think there's like one of the actors that work at the park in this movie, she's got like some scarring on her face or her arm, or so they did attempt to show body flaws as society would see them. But I think, when you're doing something like this, you're casting a lot of your friends. You're casting people and I think the filmmakers were young, and ergo a lot of their friends were young, and the representation certainly isn't as good as as it could be. Like you said, often you're going to see a lot of people who are a lot older, and that simply boils down to not that young people aren't into naturism. Young people are so busy. Like, when you're in your 60s and your 70s and stuff like that, you have more time. You're probably retired, so you have more time to just go and lay on a recliner out naked in the sun all week. And you also have more financial stability. You have more money. You can afford a membership at a naturist resort. You have your own transportation, right? A lot of people like 15, 16, 17, into their 20s, maybe even into their 30s, might not own their own car, might be paying off school, might be paying off, your first house, your mortgage payments, what have you. And so you don't have any money to go to these naturist places, and you're working your ass off to afford the expenses you do have, so you don't have any free time to go to these places. But so that's interesting. The sexual tension is... Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, everything you're saying just has really strikes true. I've talked to, I do a lot of traveling around, going to various clubs, writing stories about them in magazines. So I've talked to a lot of club owners, and they're all saying the same thing. And I've had the same conversation with them many times. They want to know how to get young people to show up, more of them. And I say, build a rock climbing wall, hire a band that doesn't come out of the 70s. And they say, well, there's no way our older members are going to listen to new music and rock climbing walls and everything that young people want. Young people got energy people like I don't have anymore. I could actually enjoy sitting by a pool or a beach, and that'd be a good day for me. But when I was younger, I wanted to do something, and I found clubs mind-numbingly boring because they just didn't do anything physical.
Yeah.
And you just, they don't want to deal with the insurance rates. It's simply the fun stuff that would draw young people would cost so much that it would break their bank. And what they can do is pickleball, bocce ball, horseshoes, and shuffleboard. I mean, this is old people stuff.
Yeah.
And it's classic cliched nudist stuff. And literally the owners say, we just can't afford something interesting, like an Olympic swimming pool, workout gear. I don't know. I'd keep waiting to see a climbing wall. I thought that would bring in some younger people.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, even the biggest, arguably the biggest and most recognizable naturist sport there is, volleyball. There's not 60s and 70-year-olds out there jumping around, for the most part, diving for the ball. Like, it's just not, it's not something you're seeing a lot of. And it raises an interesting point. Like, so at Bear Oaks, and we've been trying to launch it for 3 years now, this will be our third year. And the pandemic has put a wrench in launching any new events or things like that. But we're actually putting together a dance, like a DJ, lights, smoke, beer garden style, like club night, outside on the lawn club night. And a lot of people I know, there'd be a lot of naturists who are in their 60s, 70s, 80s, they're going to look at that and go, I don't, we don't want that here. We don't need that here. And a lot of park owners, club owners, resort owners that would go, well, that's not what my older clientele want. And if there's any owners listening right now, I'm speaking directly to you right now. Your older clientele, as wonderful as they are not the future of your park. They are not the future of naturism. And naturism's going to, and that doesn't mean that every weekend is this big, crazy, ridiculous thing. You find the balance. But understand that these younger families, that is the future of the lifestyle. And so if naturism, as it has many times before, if it's not able to adapt and evolve, to accommodate this new generation, then it's going to die out. It's going to die out with these older members, like quite literally going to die out with them. And so, yeah, no, I agree. I agree entirely. The other thing you said about this movie was the sexuality, and yeah, you're dead on there. Like, it would make sense to me for the two girls to show up and feel that tension, because they're coming directly out of the hypersexualized society, the textile world, and they don't have those sensibilities about them yet about naturism and about social nudity. But the guy, like, there's people at this park. The naturists are also caught up in that tension with these girls, and there's like not sex scenes, but I think there's like the door closes and it fades to dark, and it wakes up and everyone's got like come out of the cabin with messed up hair, or whatever it is. Like they're clearly having sex in this, and it's weird because when the credits roll, like you said, there's this like blooper behind the scenes kind of montage that I feel like undoes like any feelings you had watching the film of, oh, the filmmakers here, the atmosphere on this set, they really got it. They really get it that it's that nudity and sexuality don't have to be in the same conversation. They're not the same thing, right? They can exist together, but they don't always have to exist together. And this montage that happens, all these little clips, I feel like hurts so much of that credibility. It very quickly undoes any of those good feelings that you had about, oh, you know what? They got it right.
Yeah.
You were going to say something, Pete?
No. I'm just in agreement.
Yeah. For two young women to actually show up at a nudist club, that would be a strikingly interesting event as it is. You just don't find that happening that often. You don't find a guy or a couple guys or a fraternity of guys wanting to show up, but to have a couple of young women show up, that's something. There is no way in heck anybody directly associated with that club is going to do anything but extend the most courteous conversations to them. I just can't even. I mean, I don't know. I've seen dork nudist guys spend far too much time, more or less, very subtly hitting on some new woman, and it's just a pain in the neck to watch it happen. And you just kind of wish the guy would disappear because he's just messing things up. But just because he's socially inept, that kind of stuff, you're going to find those kinds of people no matter where you go. But I just got the impression that kind of thing could happen at any given moment in this film, and it didn't strike me as too realistic. What I did like about the film, another thing that I think was accurate, that is super, super subtle, was a sense of sensuousness. There's a William Blake makes a distinction between sensuality and sensuousness, but there's this kind of feeling of this blissful feeling of having air and water on you. And Blake apparently liked being naked occasionally with his wife as they're reading Milton and whatnot in the backyard. But as they're getting in and out of water, walking around, there is a kind of a sense that these people, the nudists there and the two new women, were coming to recognize there is something really pleasant about just wandering about with other human beings in an outdoor setting. That came across, I think, kind of subtly. They didn't really talk about it, but I see that more in Act Naturally than I do really Garden of Eden, which in a sense is more directly addressing the issue. Or maybe they got that pretty good, I thought.
Yeah, I would agree. Yep. Yeah, there's definitely more emphasis on what the experience is, as opposed to just, this is weird and we need to overcome it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any other questions about Act Naturally, Pete?
I don't think so. I mean, it is. I would mirror everything that both of you have said about it, but I like the modern, more kind of rejuvenized interpretation that I viewed from it. So I think I hold it in a bit of a higher light, but it definitely had its shortcomings in some ways.
Yeah, for sure. So I have a question then that is just a little bit more of a theoretical question. Of the three films that we've talked about, and really, if you look at the films, the naturist films that are out there, There aren't many, if any. Garden of Eden might be the closest. Directly naturist film that could be considered a of its time, of its era, a true proper Hollywood film. There are films like the Jennifer Aniston film Wanderlust that has a whole kind of nudist group kind of theme that runs throughout that movie. But it's mostly used for comedic effect in what is otherwise not a nudist film. What would it take, and is it possible for there to be a genuine blockbuster Hollywood naturist film that exists, whether it be advertising, although I don't think it should be, because I think that's when a film starts coming across as cheap. So maybe it needs to be that in a naturist setting already, and just regular naturists dealing with regular everyday stuff. Although then maybe the film's not relatable enough and no one's going to go see it except a gawk. Like, I don't know. Is it possible? And if so, in your opinion, what is the perfect storm that makes that work?
Well, that is the holy grail for every single naturist videographer I talked to. Every single one of them. That's what they wanted to do. Most of them didn't think they were ever going to be able to do it. By the way, I've got to say, if anything comes close, it might be, in my opinion, Confetti. I became an Olivia Colman mad fan after that movie. She claimed it was the worst experience in her life, but she was naked virtually the entire film. She was the nudist woman in this goofball comedy about various couples trying to get a free wedding.
Yeah.
And the nudist couple was only one of them. But I thought they handled the nudist stuff well, and she was an awesome nudist. She wasn't like a Bo Derek 10. She was an absolutely gorgeous, normal-looking woman in the prime of her life. And I don't know, if you like Olivia Colman and the Queen and the various things she's done since then, you got to go back and see that. I thought it handled the nudist stuff tongue-in-cheek. They're joking around about it constantly, but that's okay. Nudism can seem kind of goofy and funny to a lot of people. I say, don't have a thick skin, just go with the flow and enjoy the laugh. But I thought that movie did a pretty good job. But what would be the ideal movie? Almost everybody I've talked to, the filmmakers, are saying it can't be about nudism. It just has to be a nudist or a nudist setting as part of an otherwise interesting storyline. There's lots of novels that do this. I think of John Ball's novel, The Cool Cottontail from the 60s. He's just Virgil Tibbs, the black detective. He just has to go to a nudist club because somebody's dead in the swimming pool there. And he ends up talking to nudists, getting introduced to nudism about it. Doesn't become a nudist himself. Plays it kind of even-handedly. But throughout the book, you kind of find out what nudist life is like, what some nudists aspire to, what the principles are, why some people don't like it, why some people do like it. And then it's the story, it's the murder mystery that kind of drives the whole thing. If they could have a film like that, I think a lot of naturists would be really happy. As long as naturism was portrayed accurately and as part of an otherwise ordinarily interesting life, I think it could be a good film. Whether it would do well and be a blockbuster, I don't know. I think nudism is something that a lot of people are uncomfortable with still. You just would have to put a bunch of money in terms of good story and good actors in it. But I think it can be done. But I think it would need to be naturism accurately portrayed, but not focused on just as a setting or as a part of the storyline, in my opinion.
You would almost need some sort of star power pull to make it, to give it some credibility, right? Like it doesn't need to be like big crazy hunks, like, but like find someone who's done nudity in a film before, so they're willing to do it. Someone who's not the quote unquote a perfect 10. But someone who has enough star power and recognition that then maybe you're getting into unaffordable budgets because you have to pay this Hollywood star to be naked the entire film.
I'd like to see Jack Nicholson and Helen Mirren do exactly this. And they're both old, they're both aging like crazy, and they both have not nudist backgrounds, but Jack Nicholson likes running around naked, and Helen Mirren has a history of it, of course.
Jack Nicholson,
none will admit it.
Yeah, Jack Nicholson spent like a month or two living in his own home. He was completely naked, and it didn't matter who came over to visit. He was not putting pants on. And some people had no interest in it and were very uncomfortable. And others were like, I'm going to go visit Jack because I don't have to wear pants at Jack's house. And people joined in, and that's so great.
Well, if they get a good comedy with people like that, and it's not promoting nudism, just that's a relevant element to the storyline. I think it could do a lot, and that's what the movie I'd like to see.
Yeah, for sure. Pete, do you have any other questions for Mark, just in general?
No, I don't think so. I do think that's a fascinating question and kind of response Mark had, as just as far as what we need to see or what we could see for something to be a little bit more mainstream. But no, I think he's definitely granted us a bit more exposure as far as this world.
Sure. Mark, I'm going to leave you with one last question. What, in your opinion, is one thing that naturist films or depictions of naturism in film consistently get wrong? And what is something that consistently is done pretty well?
Yeah. Well, what they get wrong, if we're talking about the nudist films made by non-nudists, like the stuff up through the 60s, it's pretty clearly, if you're a guy and you show up with your shorts on and a camera wrapped around your neck, you can have one glorious day. That ain't going to happen quite the way these older movies from the 40s, 50s, and 60s. It is not a bevy of female pulchritude. It's a normal group of people. So yeah, the old films got that wrong. What are they getting it right? There is, again, that sensuousness that Blake alludes to. There is that delight in the sunshine and the air and the water that I think anybody is going to appreciate once you give it a try. I mean, almost everybody likes swimming. People ask me, why should you be naked? Why do you have to be naked? Why not wear a swimsuit? I say, well, do you like swimming? And everybody says yes. I say, do you like swimming in a long sleeve t-shirt and jeans or a bathing suit? They say, well, clearly a bathing suit. I said, well, it's the same thing with naturists. They would rather be naked than wear the bathing suit. It's just the same kind of thing. They just have taken it one step further. And those movies do seem to kind of get that across. And there is some kind of a delight, a sensuous delight in it. That's not the depth of nudism, but it is an element to it. So I think they get that right.
Yeah. I always tell people, if you think about any time you've been at a backyard party, backyard barbecue or whatever, and it happens to be at a lake or they have a pool or whatever, and you've shown up, it's the summertime, you've shown up in a t-shirt and your swim trunks, and with the knowledge that there's the opportunity to swim, but you don't ever end up swimming. When the time comes to go swimming, you think to yourself, I don't really want to go swimming. I would surmise that a lot of the time, maybe 75% of the time, it's because it's not that you don't want to swim, it's you don't want to get wet. And it's not that you don't want to get wet, because you're easily dryable. It's you are looking ahead to the sensation of your wet, clingy bathing suit, heavy, wet, awful, clingy bathing suit. And that's such an off-putting notion that you're like, I don't want to go swimming. Even if the water's great. Water could be beautiful. But you're like, if I go in, then I'm wet. Then I'm going to be wet for a while. And it's going to take a bit to dry. right? Nobody goes, I don't want to shower because then I'm going to be wet. No, because you get out of the shower and you dry yourself off and you're like basically instantly dry, right? But if you had to shower with shorts on and then keep those shorts on for the next 3 hours, we would all shower far less because we would be like, well, that's awful. I don't want that. That sounds terrible. Terrible.
I hear you.
Yeah. So do you have anything else to leave us with, Mark? Any like, you know, if you could, if there was one piece of naturist film wisdom that you could impart on the world.
Don't watch anything from the 60s. There's actually, if you want to watch some good naturist film that I think naturist would be happy with, some of the 2 earliest ones, the 3 earliest ones would be This Nude World, Elysia Valley of the Nude, and The Unashamed. Those 3 all came from the first half of the 1930s, and I don't think we've improved upon them, to be honest. There's some great videography since the 1980s, fabulous stuff. There's some really good creative stuff by a wonderful array of people now getting posted on streaming and whatnot. I can find online. But for feature films, I can't do better than say This Nude World is a good documentary. It covers a lot of good ground. And Elysia Valley of the Nude is funny, and it's well filmed. And The Unashamed actually has some tragedy, which is amazing to find and associated with nudism. But it's some honest-to-God race relation issues, suicidal issues, all wrapped up in a really good nudist film. So there's some good stuff out there to look at.
Cool. All right. Well, Mark, thank you so much for joining us. It has been educational, to say the least. It's been fun. I think we had a great conversation. And you're certainly welcome back anytime. And yeah, we look forward to chatting with you soon.
Okay, I enjoyed it. Thank you.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay, Pete, I need to ask you. 0 to 10, how would you rate that conversation?
Well, Mark,
I don't know how to come out of a conversation. I don't know how to end an episode other than asking you 0 to 10.
Right.
What did you think of, like, in the gadgets category? Music, Bond girl, portrayal, action? What do you think?
Yeah,
Story.
I don't know.
It was a pretty good story. I mean, the guy's name is Storey.
Yeah, that's true.
So Story, I would say 10 out of 10.
You know what? I would give him a 10 out of 10. He was gracious. He was great with answering our questions. He was wonderful. He was wonderful.
Yeah. If you're new here, we always end the show in a very, 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 very specific way. Also, if you're new here, welcome. But we always end the show just by asking each other. I mean, this is a movie podcast. Mm-hmm. And so we always end the episode just talking about what kind of films we've been watching. So, Pete, in the last week since we talked, what have you watched, sir?
The only thing, I'm trying to look at my list. I think the only thing that I technically watched, it was kind of a busy week, is I think I watched in this time frame the final episode of the Disney Plus TV show, The Book of Boba Fett, which I had been watching throughout, episode by episode.
Yeah. Instead of going back and watching the MCU shows that you're behind on. Yeah, good.
I'm behind on so much. I'm behind on other Star Wars shows. I just picked and chose, and I just randomly watched this. But you know what? It was. I can't say it was the greatest show I've ever seen. I feel like there are probably a lot of things I missed from not seeing every single other Star Wars show, or at least The Mandalorian, I guess is what I'm referring to. But I got enough out of it that I kept coming back. And again, the theme song was just phenomenal. I listen to that on repeat when I'm brushing my teeth. It's just so good. And, you know, I think if I had, like I said, if I had seen The Mandalorian, if I was a little more versed in the Clone Wars and other Star Wars universe things, I think there were a lot of Easter eggs or snippets that I would have found more powerful. But being a Star Wars fan, I still found it interesting. Still fun seeing Boba Fett back again. And, you know, not the best, but enough to keep me coming back.
Nice.
What did you watch this week?
Just three things. I watched a documentary called Empire of the Air.
Huh.
And it's all about radio and how radio came to be and
Okay.
and stuff like that. Then I watched a second documentary. I'm just trying to pull up the name of it here so that I don't get it wrong. Thematically, it's a fairly appropriate documentary. I watched, come on, internet. I watched a movie called Skin, A History of Nudity in the Movies. And it delves a little bit into both, but it's mostly like secular mainstream movies, nude scenes but not just like a collection or a talking of all of them. Like, what was it like during, these different eras? What was it like? What were the requirements? What were the expectations of young actresses and young actors and all of these things to do these scenes? And so that's all pretty fascinating. And something that may come up again in a few months on this show. The only other thing I watched that I highly recommend is I rewatched Last Night in Soho.
Oh, okay.
And it's intense. I don't think it would bother you. Listen,
Okay.
here's the disclaimer.
Yeah.
Because last time I told you, like, I watched it with people and they were extremely upset by it.
Yeah, I think the way you phrased it was simultaneously they found it rewarding, but also had night terrors or some such.
Yeah, so it is, without revealing too much about the people who I watched it with, it is, so it's rewarding because the acting in it is fantastic. The characters are compelling. The cinematography is artistically breathtaking at times. The music is out of this world. Like best soundtrack of 2021.
Okay. Wow.
Hands down.
Wow.
Down. Maybe the best soundtrack of the 2020s. Like,
Dang.
So far. And maybe forever, who knows. No, it's really good. I will say there are some scenes in it that if you are an individual who, male or female, I'm not going to specify, if you are someone who has been a victim of aggression, who has been a victim of physical violence or maybe sexual violence, or stuff like that, it's potential that there will be some scenes. Nothing like super explicit is shown.
Sure.
Like at all, really. It deals with stuff.
Sure.
And it's not what you see, it's more so just like what's implied. And you're like, oh, this is like, it's like and it's not even like, it's hard. It's without you having seen it. I guarantee you it's not what you think. It's just like, you just feel so bad. You see a character who is in just a bad spot. And I could see that would be very triggering.
For sure.
For some people. But aside from that, it is a masterpiece, though. Like, I think it truly is an excellent film. Excellent film. So Last Night in Soho, I still recommend it.
Put it on the list.
Which I think you're caught up on my list because you watched Greenland, and I think that was the only.
That was the only main one, at least, that was long standing.
I mean, there's stuff like you have to watch Venom 1 and 2 so that we can, because right, Daphne, so that we can watch Morbius
Right.
when it comes out very soon. But yeah, but I think that was the only. So the new one that I'm putting in the hey, next time you watch a movie that next time you're like, I don't know what to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Watch Last Night in Soho.
Okay.
You have a lot of fun with it.
Okay.
Yeah. Wrap this up, sir.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening. Whether you're new to the show or a regular listener, we appreciate you joining us. Check out our socials below: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Give us a like and a subscribe. Give us a positive rate and review wherever you're listening. We also appreciate that. Check out our Patreon page, our merchandise page. It's ways for you to help support the show, keep the lights on, pay the bills, and it's also ways for us to return the favor and say thank you and give you some perks back for helping support the show. Until next time, I am Peter, and that is Brady.
Really? That's how you're going to end it? We just did a whole episode on being naked, and you can't think of any funny one-line thing to say?
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Wow. What a
story?
What a short no.
Story?
What a short effort you just made there. But I guess it's important that size doesn't matter, right?